Walk into any gym on January 2nd. It's a war zone of good intentions. You can practically smell the fresh spandex and blind optimism.
Oh, yeah. That buzz.
That electric buzz in the air, that's motivation.
Yeah.
It's the life of the party, right? Slapping everyone on the back, screaming, "New year, new you."
Gets you in the door.
It gets you to sign the contract, buy the shoes, post that first sweaty selfie with a hashtag no excuses hashtag. For 2 weeks, motivation is your best friend, your hype man, your dealer for that quick hit of dopamine that comes from starting something.
To starting high.
Yeah. But come back in mid-February, it's a ghost town. The only sound is the hum of the elliptical machines, haunted by the ghosts of abandoned resolutions.
Yep, seen it a million times.
Hashtag no excuses crowd is back on the couch, scrolling through takeout menus. So where did our charismatic friend go? Motivation dished you.
Flew the coop.
It's a junkie, always chasing the next high of a fresh start, but it never sticks around for the boring, repetitive, soul-crushing work.
Doesn't like the grind.
It gets you fired up for the first date, but it won't survive the marriage. Everyone is selling you this magic pill of motivation, but it's a placebo.
It really is a short-term fix.
The real power, the invisible, silent weapon that actually builds empires and forges champions. It's a much colder, less glamorous word, discipline.
That is exactly the core premise we are diving into today. Motivation is the spectacular, loud, fleeting fireworks show. Burns bright, gets that dopamine flowing, like you said.
But it's gone fast.
Vanishes in 3 minutes flat. Discipline, however, is the silent, constant, unstoppable volcano.
Okay, I like that analogy. Volcano versus fireworks.
And our mission today is crucial. We are unpacking, with the help of psychological research and deep behavioral economics, why any reliance on emotional energy, whether in business and academics or, your personal fitness, is a recipe for inevitable cyclical failure.
Failure that feels predictable looking back.
Exactly. We want to show you how building stable, cold routines and systems of discipline is the only true path to long-term sustained success.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the fundamental problem. You characterize motivation as a junkie, always chasing the next high. That suggests a biological basis for why it fails us when the going gets tough.
It does. The failure stems from motivation's nature as an emotional state. Think of it as a weather vane.
Okay. Changes with the wind.
Precisely. Because it's emotional, it is inherently transient and wildly influenced by external factors. Your environment, a critique from a boss, a great song, or even just poor sleep can boost it or crash it completely.
Right. One bad comment, and your motivation for the whole day is shot.
Totally. When you feel enthusiastic, that unpleasant task feels manageable. When you feel low, the exact same task seems insurmountable. The goal of discipline is to make the task happen irrespective of the weather.
So high performers aren't waiting for the mood to strike. They know chasing that feeling is, well, fool's errand.
Pretty much.
But if motivation is what gets us to sign up in the first place, is it totally useless or just maybe misused?
Not useless, no, but misleading. Motivation is excellent for initiation. It provides that initial burst of energy needed to start something new.
The spark.
The spark, exactly. But its fuel runs out quickly because it is highly goal-oriented. Once that specific immediate goal is hit, say you are motivated to complete a project proposal by Tuesday, the driving force immediately subsides.
So it needs constant new goals to stay alive.
Or it just disappears. That's why we see the classic cycle of progress and regress. Massive effort, short achievement, then total burnout because the emotional driver is gone. The fireworks fizzle out.
You mentioned the biological high earlier.
Yeah.
How is motivation actually influencing our brain chemistry? What's happening in there?
Right. So when you feel motivated, you are getting a quick hit of dopamine directly appealing to the limbic cortex, that ancient immediate pleasure center of your brain.
The instant gratification part.
Yeah, exactly. It rewards the idea of starting or the initial progress. It's great for the sprint, but the consistent, difficult, non-exciting work, the planning, the reviewing, the showing up every day when you feel just average.
The boring stuff.
Boring stuff. That doesn't provide the same immediate emotional reward. That's why motivation never sticks around for the boring, repetitive, soul-crushing work. It only wants the high.
Okay. So if motivation is the emotional tourist, constantly seeking novelty, discipline must be the local guide who never leaves and knows every back road. How do we define that silent power of discipline, and how's it different mentally?
Discipline is the foundation of sustained effort, precisely because it is entirely non-contingent on emotions. It is a consistent commitment to your deepest values and necessary actions, regardless of how you happen to feel at that moment.
You defined it perfectly as a much colder, less glamorous word.
Hmm.
And the coldness is its strength, its structure, not feeling.
That's it. It's about the system, not the mood.
And what are we actually building in our minds when we commit to discipline? Are we just like white-knuckling it, overwriting our feelings, or is there a genuine neurological shift happening?
There is a profound neurological shift. It's not just willpower in the moment. The motivation mechanism, like we said, engages the limbic system, impulse, and desire.
Right.
But the consistency required by discipline actually builds the prefrontal cortex.
Ah, the planning and control center.
Exactly. The part of the brain responsible for executive function, future management, self-control, long-term planning. You are literally engaging a higher cognitive function. Through repetition and forcing yourself to accept discomfort, like getting out of bed when it's cold and dark.
Which nobody feels like doing.
Nobody. But by doing it, you sculpt your brain so that the action becomes an automatic low-energy circuit, not a debilitating negotiation with your emotional state every single morning.
So you're sort of hacking your mind to favor the future over the present.
You are. You're building pathways that make the long-term choice easier over time.
That sounds like a truly powerful, invisible weapon. Let's dive into the 4 core tangible benefits of this disciplined approach, starting with the most basic: consistency and routine.
Right. Consistency is the quiet engine of achievement. When you embrace discipline, you establish cold routines and non-negotiable habits.
Cold routines, I like that term. It takes the emotion out.
It does. The very best performers replace their reliance on emotional energy with the structure. For example, a successful writer doesn't wait to feel inspired. They sit down at 8 a.m. every day, no matter what.
But a habit takes over.
The habit takes over. These routines build sustainable habits that eventually become second nature, and crucially, they eliminate decision fatigue. When a choice becomes a habit, you save the mental energy you would have spent negotiating with yourself.
Should I or shouldn't I? That whole debate disappears.
Exactly. Success becomes achievable daily, built into the schedule, rather than sporadic and elusive, dependent on feeling good.
Okay. And if consistency is the daily ritual, delayed gratification is the grand strategy. This seems like the fundamental skill that separates the successful from the frustrated, especially today, with, everything designed for immediate satisfaction.
It absolutely is the defining factor in long-term success. Discipline trains you to look beyond the immediate moment. It equips you to resist the sweet seduction of short-term pleasures, that extra hour of scrolling, the comfort food, the impulsive purchase.
All the easy stuff.
All the easy stuff, yeah. In favor of the substantial long-term rewards that only come from sustained commitment. This skill is critical because, as we'll get into, our brains are fundamentally wired to favor the now.
Hardwired for it.
Pretty much. Discipline counteracts that inherent human tendency. It makes you a long-term investor in your own life rather than just a short-term speculator.
Makes sense. Then there's the crucial element of resilience, which feels like a direct countermeasure to the volatility of motivation. Because, let's be honest, success is never a straight line, and setbacks are pretty much guaranteed.
They are, absolutely guaranteed. Discipline is the cultivation of tolerance and resilience. Disciplined people don't view setbacks or hardships as fundamental reasons to quit.
Like the motivation crowd might.
Exactly. They see them as necessary, expected stepping stones toward their objective. They have built the mental muscle to recognize that recovery and learning are built into the discipline process itself.
So a bump in the road isn't a catastrophe.
Right. When a motivated person hits a wall, they often quit because the pleasure, the dopamine hit, stops. When a disciplined person hits a wall, they see it as a structural failure in the system that requires a correction, maybe a new strategy, not a total abandonment of the entire goal.
So they adjust the system, not throw it out.
Exactly. This ensures they persevere and stay committed even when facing significant obstacles. They trust the process over the immediate feeling.
And finally, confidence and self-esteem. It sounds counterintuitive that something cold and structured, which often involves temporary discomfort, would ultimately build a robust sense of self-worth. How does that work?
It's perhaps the most logical outcome of all. Discipline naturally fosters a deep, unshakable sense of self-achievement and self-worth. By consistently committing to your goals, you are continually proving to yourself with tangible evidence every single day that you are competent, capable, and in control of your actions. It's not a motivational poster telling you you're capable.
Empty words.
Right. It's the fact that you showed up for the 400th day in a row, even when you didn't want to. This consistent, self-directed act of commitment enhances your self-esteem and builds a positive, capable identity that impacts every facet of your life. It's earned confidence.
Earned, not just felt. Okay, speaking of structured achievement, we have to turn to the academic world where this concept has a specific name. Grit. This is basically the academic and research-backed face of discipline, isn't it?
It is, yes. And the research highlights it as arguably one of the most important metrics for lasting achievement in education and, frankly, beyond. Grit is defined specifically as perseverance and passion for long-term goals.
Perseverance and passion. So there's still an element of interest, but it's sustained.
Right, but the crucial part is maintaining effort and interest over years, often despite failure, adversity, or those really frustrating plateaus in progress where you feel like you're working hard but not getting any better.
Ah, the plateaus. That's where motivation really dies.
Absolutely. Grit carries you through those.
And the research on grit seems to fundamentally challenge the old idea that innate intelligence, IQ, is the ultimate determiner of success.
It absolutely does. Studies have demonstrated time and again that grit, alongside general self-discipline, is a better predictor of success in highly demanding environments like college or military training like West Point than standardized measures like the SAT or even IQ tests.
Wow. Better than IQ.
In many contexts, yes. The gritty individual understands the nature of achievement. It is a marathon, not a series of sprints. They value stamina, persistent effort, and consistency over that explosive, innate talent we often romanticize.
You mentioned the idea of the fragile gifted earlier. That phrase is striking. How does grit and discipline protect against the fragility of relying only on raw talent?
It connects directly to the necessity of a growth mindset. Many talented or gifted students, or even, highly successful early-stage startup founders, sometimes never learn how to fail or struggle constructively.
Because things came easily at first.
Exactly. So when they hit a legitimate snag, something truly difficult, their confidence can collapse instantly because they equate success with being inherently smart or naturally talented. They internalize the setback as a fundamental indictment of their worth. If I failed, I must not be smart after all.
Yeah, that's a dangerous trap.
It is. Grit, on the other hand, is built on the foundation of a growth mindset. The internalized attitude that my abilities are not fixed, I can get better if I try harder and adopt better strategies.
I can improve.
Precisely. This allows them to view mistakes and struggle not as a sign of failure or lack of intelligence, but as a normal, expected, and necessary part of the learning and development curve. Discipline teaches you how to tolerate that struggle without the emotional collapse. It detaches the outcome from your self-worth.
Okay, so we know motivation is volatile, discipline is steady. We have the concept of grit. Now we have to understand the deep, systematic reason why we as humans are so often predisposed to choose the volatile path anyway. This brings us to the economic trap, time inconsistency, and the powerful allure of immediate gratification.
This is where behavioral economics provides the brutal, quantifiable truth about our decision-making flaws. You mentioned the gym failure in February, that moment where the long-term goal of health loses out to the immediate reward of the warm couch.
Happens all the time.
Most people envision achieving positive future goals, right? Being healthy, saving for retirement, finishing that degree, but they struggle profoundly to act in accordance with those long-term goals now. This struggle is driven by a fundamental cognitive glitch known as present bias.
Present bias. Okay, sounds simple, but it governs so much of our failure to follow through. What does it look like when it's mathematically modeled in action? Or just practically?
Practically, it means we place significantly greater weight or importance on immediate outcomes compared to delayed outcomes. When evaluating rewards, the immediate reward is perceived as far more valuable than a delayed reward, even if the delayed reward is objectively much larger.
Like the classic marshmallow test, but for adults.
Exactly. Or the, $50 today versus $100 in 6 months scenario. Many people take the $50. We're essentially disproportionately discounting the future. The further away the reward, the less valuable it feels right now.
It was another highly relatable example beyond the generic money one, something that plays out daily.
Think about diet again. You are faced with a choice between a perfectly crafted, high-sugar, immediate dopamine dessert right now, or the vague, abstract benefit of better health and maybe an easier workout 6 months from now.
The cake is right there.
It's tangible. Present bias makes that immediate, tangible piece of cake exponentially more valuable in the moment than the abstract future benefit. The future benefits are discounted down almost to zero when the temptation is immediate.
And this hyperbolic discounting isn't just about rewards. It applies to costs, too. We avoid pain now, even if it guarantees worse pain later.
Exactly. Short-term losses or immediate discomforts are intensely avoided, even if that avoidance leads to much greater future costs. The classic example in municipal fines is the parking ticket.
Oh yeah, I know this one.
You can pay the reduced rate today, but the act of logging in, finding your card, maybe waiting on hold, executing the payment, it's an immediate, minor cost or hassle.
Feels like a pain now.
Right. People delay this payment to avoid the immediate short-term loss, only to end up paying a much higher tariff after the deadline. They choose future pain over present hassle.
That phenomenon where our preference changes the closer we get to the decision point, that's what economists call time-inconsistent preferences, right?
Precisely. This is often quantified as hyperbolic discounting. Imagine you decide today that you will start eating healthy next Monday. That's a rational, long-run preference you hold right now.
That's good on Wednesday.
Exactly. But when Monday morning arrives, your preferences shift dramatically. The immediate temptation of the pastry or sleeping in is right there, and you decide, okay, I'll start Tuesday. Your rational, long-run plan gets steamrolled by your immediate short-term desire.
The person I am today makes plans my future self won't keep.
That's the essence of it. The person you are today might hate the idea of smoking tomorrow, but when tomorrow arrives, the person you are then craves the cigarette now. This inconsistency is the fundamental enemy of discipline.
Okay, and that time inconsistency drives two distinct behaviors that define our self-control problems, depending on whether the cost or the reward comes first. We have the well-known problem of procrastination.
Yep.
And the less discussed, maybe more insidious problem of pre-preparation.
That's right. When the preference for immediate gratification meets reality, it breaks down into these two types of self-control problems. Procrastination is the easy one to grasp. This is underindulging in activities that have an immediate cost and a delayed reward.
Putting off the bad stuff.
Putting off the bad stuff, doing your taxes, writing that unpleasant work report, cleaning the garage. You postpone the immediate pain, hoping your future self will magically be more motivated or capable to deal with it.
Which they rarely are. And then there's the truly counterintuitive flip side, pre-preparation. What's that about?
Pre-preparation, a term essentially meaning to do before the proper time, is the opposite and often causes greater long-term damage, actually. This is overindulging in activities that have immediate rewards and delayed costs.
So grabbing the good stuff too soon.
Exactly. You seek the immediate pleasure and pull the activity sooner than you rationally should. Examples include overeating, impulse buying, binge watching a show when you know you should pace yourself, or even, in an academic sense, rushing through an assignment just to get the immediate satisfaction of marking it complete, sacrificing quality for that quick relief.
You're basically stealing pleasure or quality from the future to feel good now.
That's a great way to put it, stealing from your future self.
Now we get to the most fascinating and frankly kind of complicated part of this behavioral modeling. The difference between naïfs and sophisticateds. How does merely knowing you have a self-control problem change the actual outcome? Doesn't awareness always help?
Not necessarily. This is where it gets really interesting. The outcome depends entirely on self-awareness regarding your future self-control. A person is categorized as naive if they incorrectly believe they will behave according to their long-run, rational preferences in the future. They are optimists about their future self-control. Next week, I'll definitely resist.
The eternal optimist.
Right. Conversely, a person is categorized as sophisticated if they correctly predict their future self-control failure. They are behavioral pessimists about their future self. Yeah, I know next week I'll probably cave.
Okay, let's apply this to the procrastination scenario first, where the task has immediate costs, like writing that long, unpleasant report. What happens to the naive?
The naive suffers the worst fate here. Because they are naively over-optimistic, they repeatedly put off the unpleasant task. Oh, I'll feel more like it tomorrow. I'll have more time next week. They incorrectly believe they will feel motivated and organized enough to do it next period.
Kicking the can down the road.
Constantly. They defer the cost. They compound mistake after mistake, leading to severe welfare losses. They end up rushing at the very last second, often producing a poor quality report or missing the deadline entirely. They are constantly tricking themselves by believing in a future disciplined self that never materializes.
Okay, so the naive is trapped in the cycle of, I'll start tomorrow. What about the sophisticated procrastinator? The one who knows they'll hate it later, too.
The sophisticated person procrastinates significantly less, or at least less damagingly. Because they correctly predict their future failure, they know they will hate doing the report just as much, if not more, on day 3. This pessimism actually motivates them to complete the unpleasant task sooner, say, on day 2.
Fear of the future failure pushes them to act now.
Exactly. They engage in a form of preemptive overcontrol. They force themselves to bear the immediate cost now to avoid the certainty of a worse outcome later. Awareness, in this case, helps mitigate procrastination. It's a form of self-binding.
That makes sense. The knowledge of their own weakness becomes their greatest motivator to get it done. But you said this dynamic flips completely in the pre-preparation scenario where there are immediate rewards and delayed costs. Take the example of seeing a movie. You have a mediocre movie available today, costs little effort, immediate fun, but there's a fantastic one available in 3 weeks. It requires patience.
This is the critical flip, and it demonstrates the danger of too much awareness in the wrong context. Here, sophistication can actually exacerbate self-control problems due to what's known as the unraveling effect.
Unraveling. How does that work?
The sophisticated person, realizing they will inevitably misbehave later, meaning they know they probably won't have the discipline to wait 3 weeks for the fantastic movie because the temptation to watch something will be too strong next week.
Okay.
Might reason, well, since I know I'm going to cave and watch some mediocre movie next week anyway, I might as well just watch this mediocre movie now.
Oh, so they anticipate failing to wait, so they reason the future benefit of the great movie is already lost, justifying their immediate indulgence in the lesser option.
Precisely. Their pessimism about future self-control leads them to unravel their long-run plans. They think, why bother waiting if I know I'll fail? This results in them overindulging or taking the lesser immediate rewards sooner than they otherwise would. They are so sure they'll succumb to temptation next week that they might as well do it today, leading to the worst outcome, enjoying the mediocre movie right away instead of waiting for the great one.
That's wild. Sophistication makes it worse in this case. What about the naive? Does their lack of awareness somehow protect them here?
In this specific scenario, paradoxically, yes, to some extent. The naive over-optimism, genuinely believing they will have the willpower to wait the full 3 weeks for the best movie, actually helps motivate them to delay the indulgence for a longer period.
Because they believe they can achieve the best outcome.
Right. Now, they might still fail at the last minute. Maybe they only make it 2 weeks instead of 3 before watching something mediocre. But their optimism pushed them closer to the rational, optimal timeline than the pessimist who gave up immediately and watched the bad movie on day 1.
So the takeaway is, awareness isn't always the antidote.
Exactly. It illustrates that knowledge about future misbehavior increases the perceived cost of current indulgence when costs are immediate, which helps fight procrastination. But it decreases the perceived cost of current indulgence when rewards are immediate, which can worsen pre-preparation, the grab-it-now problem.
That is a fascinating and crucial insight. Awareness isn't a magic bullet. It can sometimes fuel the very indulgence you are trying to avoid, depending on the situation. Okay, now let's move from these abstract models, fascinating as they are, to real-world application. How does this battle between motivation and discipline play out in organizations? You mentioned exploring the strategic imperative of fostering organizational discipline.
Right. We can look at the stark contrast between 2 tech startups navigating the same competitive market. Let's call them Vivid and Keystone. Vivid was the classic motivational startup. They had the super charismatic CEO, the huge launch parties, amazing perks, free food, game rooms, just infectious energy everywhere.
Sounds fun. Lots of hype.
Tons of hype. Their organizational fuel was 100% motivation, driven by big targets, excitement, a change-the-world vibe.
The kind of company everyone wants to work for.
Yeah.
Until the funding dries up or the market turns.
Exactly. Then there was Keystone. Quiet, relentlessly focused on cold process, and frankly, profoundly unglamorous. Their founder, let's call him Mr. Park, was obsessed with organizational discipline.
Okay, what did that look like in practice?
He implemented mandatory short 15-minute sync-ups every single morning, same time, no exceptions, whether anyone felt they had anything new to report or not. Routine.
Forced communication.
Pretty much. They enforced rigorous multi-step code reviews where 3 different people had to sign off electronically before any code went live. No shortcuts.
Building quality control into the system.
Right. And maybe most importantly, they required every team to submit detailed 5 points of friction reports after every project. A dispassionate, blame-free analysis of what went wrong, what slowed things down, what could be systemically improved.
That sounds like a company fueled entirely by bureaucratic efficiency rather than inspiration or passion. Maybe a bit dull.
It probably felt that way sometimes, yeah. Their pace was methodical, reliable, and entirely predictable. But when the inevitable market downturn hit, The motivational fuel for Vivid just evaporated.
Hype doesn't pay the bills.
Nope. The charismatic CEO couldn't rally the troops with sheer enthusiasm when budgets were slashed and layoffs happened. The company collapsed because it had no deeply ingrained systems, no muscle memory to rely on when the emotional energy was gone.
And Keystone.
Keystone, operating on those cold routines and non-negotiable habits, barely flinched. Their discipline allowed them to maintain rigorous performance under stress. They knew how to operate leanly because they always focused on efficiency. They methodically captured market share from their disorganized, collapsing competitors.
Wow. So the boring company won.
The boring, disciplined company won in the long run. It's a powerful lesson in sustainable corporate performance. Unglamorous, deeply ingrained organizational discipline creates resilience that motivation alone can never provide.
We see the same tension between the desire for excitement and the necessity of structure play out acutely in education, too. You mentioned investigating pedagogical strategies.
Absolutely. Consider the high school environment. There's often immense pressure on teachers to make learning fun and engaging to keep students motivated.
Keep their attention, basically.
Right. But we had the case of a teacher, let's call her Mrs. Albright, who grew tired of chasing that fleeting motivation. She had a very bright student, Jamie, who was extremely inconsistent. Brilliant when engaged, but totally checked out otherwise.
So Jamie would excel when he was personally excited about a topic, like maybe a specific history period.
Exactly. But if the material felt dull or challenging, say, grammar rules or complex math formulas, he would just refuse to work or do the bare minimum. He relied entirely on that emotional fuel of interest.
So how did Miss Albright shift the focus to academic discipline instead of just trying to make grammar fun, which is hard?
She reframed her classroom expectations around structure, not passion. She instituted a mandatory first 20 rule across all her subjects.
First 20.
The first 20 minutes of every single class period were dedicated to silent, focused work on a specific foundational task, maybe reviewing notes, using a specific method, doing practice problems, outlining the next essay, highly structured, non-negotiable.
No discussion, no waiting for inspiration, just work.
Just work. There were no exceptions, regardless of how Jamie or anyone else felt that morning. Jamie, stripped of the ability to wait for the feeling of motivation or interest to strike, was forced to rely on the routine structure.
He just had to do it because it was time.
He just had to do it. The routine lowered the mental barrier to starting because it removed the daily negotiation, the "do I feel like it today?" question. He finished assignments not because he suddenly found English grammar exciting.
Probably never did.
Probably not. But because sitting down and completing the next structured step was simply the non-negotiable system in that classroom.
And the outcome.
His grades improved significantly across the board, not just in the subjects he liked. And maybe more importantly, Ms. Albright observed that he found a more stable internal satisfaction derived from his own consistency and competence from doing the work, rather than relying on the fleeting high of external excitement or praise.
So the discipline itself built self-worth, like you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. It became the true builder of knowledge and self-worth for him, demonstrating how academic discipline, not just intrinsic motivation, is crucial for long-term learning and combating disengagement.
That's powerful evidence. Okay, now let's scale this up to the societal level. When we talk about collective discipline, we are often talking about public health and the massive difficulty of overcoming widespread cultural immediate gratification.
Yeah.
You mentioned analyzing the societal impact.
Absolutely. This is where individual present bias aggregates into huge societal problems. Think about a typical small American town struggling with public health metrics. Obesity, diabetes, low activity levels.
A common story, unfortunately.
Very common. They tried all the traditional motivational campaigns, right? Posters promoting exercise, maybe annual health fairs with free checkups and seminars, temporary monetary incentives for joining a gym.
The usual playbook.
The usual playbook. And they all failed to create lasting change because the root problem was a widespread culture of immediate gratification, choosing the quick, processed meal, choosing the couch over movement after a long day. The interventions were temporary jolts of motivation, not habit builders.
So what was the shift? How did they try to foster collective discipline?
The key was shifting away from grand, one-time motivational gestures towards small, consistent collective discipline initiatives, making the healthier choice the easier, more normal choice.
Okay, like what specifically?
Instead of a big, one-time community fitness event that everyone gets hyped for and then forgets, they implemented the daily Main Street Mile Walking Club. The rule was simple. A core group committed to walking together every single morning at 7 a.m., rain or shine. Consistency. Visibility.
Made it a norm.
Made it a norm. Crucially, they also established a community garden. Not just as a fun activity, but with a strict, non-negotiable rotational schedule for watering, weeding, and harvesting. If you or your assigned group missed your slot without arranging cover, your group lost privileges for the next harvest.
Adding accountability and consequence.
Exactly. It wasn't about wanting to weed, it was about fulfilling your role in the system. They also introduced a simple town treasury initiative, encouraging residents to deposit just $1, a tiny manageable amount, into a collective fund every single Friday towards a specific visible community goal, like a new playground.
Small, consistent actions adding up.
Precisely. And the 2-year result was profound. Because of these consistent, unglamorous habits, they saw statistically significant lowered rates of obesity and diabetes. They reported significantly improved community connection and social capital, and they successfully funded and built that new playground using the money from that consistent collective saving effort.
Wow. That really proves that societal health and stability aren't built by flashy campaigns, but through the slow, steady power of shared, unglamorous habits that systematically overcome our inherent tendency to prioritize the immediate reward.
It really does. Collective discipline through consistent habits works.
This issue of immediate reward versus delayed cost is nowhere more acute or tragic than in the discussion of addiction.
Addiction is the perfect, though devastating, economic application of this entire problem. It involves yielding today to a highly salient, immediate desire, the powerful gratification of the addictive substance or behavior that carries steep, predictable, often catastrophic costs in the future.
Costs like health problems, financial ruin, damaged relationships.
Exactly. Negative internalities and destructive habit formation. In the theoretical models we discussed earlier, the naive individual, the eternal optimist who believes they will surely quit next month, next year,
This is the last time.
suffers severe welfare losses. They consume the addictive product throughout their lives, always sincerely planning to quit next period, trapping themselves in a heartbreaking cycle of self-betrayal, fueled by their inability to predict their own future cave-in.
And how does sophistication play into the addiction model? If you know you're likely to fail to quit later, does that help or hurt?
It leads to fascinating, sometimes counterintuitive self-control mechanisms, theoretically at least. A sufficiently foresighted young person who is sophisticated about their own future weakness knows her future self will inevitably cave to the desire if she gets hooked. Knowing she will likely fail to quit later, she may actually choose to consume less of the addictive good today than her naive counterpart, maybe even less than she ideally wants from a pure short-term pleasure perspective. She refrains or limits consumption early on as a strategy to induce good behavior in the future. She knows that if she allows herself to get fully hooked now, her future self is essentially doomed. It's a preemptive strike against her own anticipated lack of future discipline. She binds her future self by controlling her present self.
So awareness of future failure can, in this extreme case, lead to more present control, unlike the movie example.
Potentially, yes, in some models. It highlights the complexity. The same bias plays out differently depending on the structure of costs, rewards, and awareness.
Okay. So whether we are trying to manage our weight, build a resilient organization, teach students effectively, improve public health, or fight addiction, the central challenge remains the same. How do we bridge the gap between our rational long-term intentions and our immediate impulsive actions? We need a playbook. And that seems to start with understanding how external systems or policy nudges can help us build discipline collectively and individually.
Nudging is absolutely crucial because it's a cost-effective and, importantly, non-coercive way to promote desirable disciplined behaviors at scale. A nudge, to be clear, is a behaviorally informed intervention. It works by changing the choice architecture, basically, how choices are presented to us.
The environment of choice.
Exactly. To alter behavior predictably, without forbidding any options or significantly changing economic incentives like adding big taxes or penalties, it's about making the good choice the easy choice.
It's not about coercion. It's about making the disciplined choice the path of least resistance.
That's the goal. And the evidence for cost-effectiveness is overwhelming. For instance, think about flu shots. In one large study looking at influenza vaccinations, a simple planning prompt nudge intervention, just asking people to write down the specific date and time they plan to get their vaccination.
Making a concrete plan.
Right. That simple act increased the number of people actually vaccinated per $100, spent significantly more than traditional educational campaigns, get your flu shot,
Sure.
even small monetary incentives.
Wow. Cheaper and more effective.
Because it leverages commitment and planning, two pillars of discipline, without forcing the issue or paying people off. It helps people follow through on their existing good intentions.
Let's look at how specific, sophisticated nudges are being applied in public health, especially in contexts like Japan, which seems to excel at leveraging collective habits and subtle social cues.
Japan has deployed some really powerful behavioral science to increase health checkup uptake, tackling that present bias head on. Consider the town of Hakahama. They recognize the friction, the hassle factor in getting screened for cancer.
The immediate costs of scheduling, going, etc.
Right. So first, they integrated cancer screening into the regular general health exams people were already getting, reduced the hassle, but crucially, they changed the form. Instead of an opt-in form, check here if you want cancer screening, they used an opt-out form.
Meaning you had to actively say no.
Yes. You had to actively check a box and sometimes even provide a reason for not undergoing the screening. This simple changed the default setting from requiring an action to get screened, opt-in, to requiring an action or reason to refuse opt-out leveraged inertia.
And the result?
Uptake increased from a pretty mediocre 36% to a robust 53% just by changing the default. Discipline through inertia, making the healthy choice automatic unless you actively fight it.
That is a staggering difference achieved just by flipping the default. What about how the message itself is framed? Does that matter?
Hugely. That's another key area, loss aversion. We know from behavioral economics that people feel the pain of a loss much more acutely than the joy of an equivalent gain. Losses loom larger.
We hate losing things more than we like gaining them.
Exactly. So in the city of Hakioji, they tested messages for colorectal cancer screening reminders. Some got a gain-framed message, like you may gain the opportunity for early detection. Others got a loss-framed message.
What'd that sound like?
Something like, you may lose the opportunity to detect cancer early if you don't get screened, framing it as preventing a loss. The result, the loss message resulted in a 7.2% higher uptake rate.
Same information, different feeling, different behavior.
Precisely. And also, they found that focusing on simplification worked wonders. Instead of ambiguous messages just vaguely encouraging uptake, get your checkup, clear instructions, stressing exactly where to get a health checkup, what documents to bring, what the process involved, basically reducing the cognitive load and making the task feel easier and less uncertain.
Removing friction.
Removing friction. That increased the overall uptake rate by 3.7%. Friction is the enemy of discipline. Make it easy.
So whether we are designing public policy or our own personal system of discipline, we need a framework that institutionalizes these anti-impulse nudges. The UK's Behavioral Insights team developed the EAST framework, which sounds useful. How can we use this to structure our own systems for discipline?
EAST is a fantastic, simple mnemonic. It provides 4 key pillars for designing effective systems that leverage our natural biases instead of fighting them. E is for easy. We must simplify the path to the discipline choice. Reduce the effort required.
Like automatic 401k enrollment.
Perfect example. Or, personally, laying out your running clothes the night before. Pre-chopping vegetables for the week. Reduce the steps and decision points between you and the desired action. Make it effortless or as close as possible.
Okay. E for easy. A is for attractive.
This means drawing attention to the desired choice, making it salient or appealing. Make the discipline option visually engaging or satisfying. In a public setting, this is placing healthy food at eye level in a cafeteria.
What about personally?
Personally, it could mean using visual progress trackers, like putting a marble in a jar for every workout, or using an app with satisfying progress bars, or maybe just making your workspace clean and inviting for focused work. Make the discipline path appealing.
Got it. Easy, attractive. S for social. Discipline can't just be a solitary pursuit, right? We're social creatures.
Deeply social. Humans are wired for social conformity and influenced by perceived norms. Social involves leveraging social norms and networks. In a classroom, this might mean showing class attendance statistics, 9 out of 10 students attend every class, or publicly praising effort and punctuality.
Using peer pressure for good.
Essentially, yes. In a personal setting, this is why accountability partners work so well. Or joining those community walking clubs or online fitness groups. Knowing that others are expecting you or doing the same thing puts social pressure on your immediate impulsive self to conform to the group's disciplined behavior.
Makes sense. Easy, attractive, social. And finally, T is for timely. which seems critical for beating that present bias we spent so much time discussing.
Timely is absolutely critical. It means prompting action when people are most receptive, or getting them to make a commitment in advance of the moment of temptation or decision. Lock in your future behavior when your rational brain is in charge.
Like scheduling your workouts for the week on Sunday night.
Exactly. Or the perfect institutional example is the Smart Plan Save More Tomorrow for Retirement Savings, developed by Richard Thaler and Shlomo Benartzi.
How does that work again?
It asks employees if they want to commit now to allocating a certain percentage of their future salary increases towards their retirement savings.
Ah, so you're committing future money, not present money. Less painful now.
Way less painful. People are much more willing to commit to saving money they don't even have yet. It capitalizes on their rational, long-term intention to save more, but bypasses the immediate pain of reducing their current take-home pay. The system then automatically increases their contribution when the raise kicks in.
And it works.
Phenomenally well. It dramatically increased retirement savings rates for participants over several pay raises, helping them overcome procrastination and present bias systematically.
That Smart Plan is a brilliant demonstration of how discipline can be institutionalized. You commit when you are rational and cool-headed, and the system forces your future, impulsive self to comply. Okay, let's finish with the core personal strategies for the listener. Based on all this, how do they build their own discipline playbook?
Okay, pulling it all together for individual action. High performers understand they must consciously replace that unreliable emotional reliance with these cold routines we talked about. The first strategy, almost always, has to be start small.
Don't try to boil the ocean on day one.
Exactly. Don't try to overhaul your entire life all at once and rely on that massive burst of January 2nd motivation, because we know it won't last. If you're trying to build a writing habit, commit to just 15 minutes of uninterrupted work, not 4 hours. If it's the gym, maybe just 1 or 2 days a week initially.
Make it ridiculously achievable at first.
Make it so easy you can't say no. Start with manageable, non-intimidating change, build consistency, get some small wins, and then gradually increase the frequency or duration. Build momentum slowly.
Okay, start small. What about dealing with old, destructive habits that get in the way?
Use replacement. This is key. Don't just try to eliminate a destructive habit by sheer willpower and leave a behavioral vacuum, because the mind and your routine abhors a vacuum. The old cue will still be there.
So you need to insert something else.
Yes. Replace the old habit with a new, structured, preferably healthier one that provides a similar function or fills the same time slot. If you smoke when stressed, replace it with a 5-minute breathing exercise. If you mindlessly scroll your phone when you wake up, replace it with stretching or reading 1 page of a book.
Chewing gum instead of smoking is a classic example.
Exactly. This makes it less likely for the old, easy default habit to resurface when the cue hits, because you have a planned alternative ready to go.
Smart. Start small. Replacement. And finally, structuring your goals so the path is clear and non-negotiable seems crucial.
Absolutely. Use the SMART goals framework. Make sure your goals are specific. What exactly do you want to achieve? Measurable. How will you track progress? Achievable. Is it realistic given your current situation? Relevant. Does it align with your values? And time-bound. When will you achieve it by?
Turns vague wishes into concrete plans.
Precisely. This structure translates abstract desire, I want to be healthier, into concrete action. I will walk for 30 minutes after dinner on weekdays and track it in my app. Instead of saying, I want to read more, you define it as, I want to read 12 specific nonfiction books by December 31st, starting by reading 20 pages of book 1 tonight before bed.
That clarity provides a metric and a deadline.
Right. It ensures that your long-term intentions are translated into consistent, measurable daily or weekly actions that discipline can actually latch onto and sustain. It builds the system for success. So we circle back to the central truth we began with, really. Success is not some mystical quality reserved for the uniquely motivated or the genetically gifted. It is achieved far more often through a structural balance. Motivation might provide the initial necessary spark, that excitement to sign up, to start the project, to make the call. It gets you to the starting line.
But it won't finish the race for you.
It won't finish the race. Discipline is the quiet, methodical engine that ensures sustained effort, resilience through the inevitable setbacks, and steady progress over weeks, months, and years. The true high performer doesn't wait for the unpredictable high of motivation. They trust the system, they trust the cold routine, and they trust the non-negotiable commitment they made to their future self when they were thinking clearly.
Discipline is the invisible weapon that builds successful organizations that last, builds deep academic competence, and builds genuine earned self-worth. It's not glamorous, it's often uncomfortable in the moment, but it is reliable. It bypasses the volatility of your emotions and commits to your future. That really is the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive. Discipline will take you places motivation alone cannot.